Hello everyone, and welcome to my podcast series, Leadership During the Coronavirus Crisis. This one is on the Family First Coronavirus Response Act passed by Congress and President Trump, and how it impacts employers of less than 500 employees. Before we start though, I want to talk about how serious this crisis has become. Today, and today's March 31st, Goldman Sachs has come out with new guidance on the depth of the recession due to the coronavirus. They said previously that we should expect 9% unemployment in the second quarter. They now have raised that to 15%. That's a pretty big hike. And said we will have a 34% drop in economic activity. They expect economic activity to improve in the third quarter, which begins in July, and that it will rise to 19% at that time and alleviate some of that unemployment. But that's a very serious recession and speaks to the length of how long this might be. And then also over the weekend, Dr. Fauci of the National Institute of Health came out and said that as he looks at the data, he predicts 1 million to 2 million Americans will be infected by the coronavirus, with 100,000 to 200,000 deaths. That's very serious. I don't need to tell you that. And he also emphasized its importance to practice social distancing and to wash our hands all the time like a surgeon. So with that table setting, let's get back to the Family First Coronavirus Act and its impact on small employers. There's some good benefits here for small employers and their employees. So U.S. companies with fewer than 500 employees will be covered by the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and it begins on April 1st. The act requires employers to pay for 80 hours of sick leave and extended family and medical leave for up to an additional 10 weeks for specific reasons associated with COVID-19. And again, it begins on April 1st and goes through the rest of the year through December 31st, 2020. It is not retroactive before April 1st. The Act allows for leave for part-time employees at a prorated amount. And of course, the pay that the employers pay out for this, for the sick time and for the leave, is refunded by the federal government through payroll tax credits. The 80 hours of sick leave is at the employer's, the employee's regular rate of pay, capped to $511 per day. And specifically, the sick leave is for employees who are unable to work, including telework, and who are subject to the following: a coronavirus quarantine or isolation order, advice from a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to the coronavirus concerns, symptoms of coronavirus, and they are seeking medical diagnosis, and that the employee is caring for an individual subject to a coronavirus quarantine or isolation order, or has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, and is seeking a medical diagnosis, or the employee is caring for a child under the age of 18 whose school or place of care is closed for reasons related to COVID-19. These wages for the act, for the leave, and for the sick time are not subject to the 6.2% Social Security tax for both the employee and the employer. The sick leave is paid by the employer and will be refunded to the employer by the IRS with a credit against the employer's payroll taxes. If the employer's payments to employees exceed the amount of the employer's payroll tax, then the additional amount will be refunded to the employer. Applicable tax credits also extend to amounts paid by or incurred by employers to maintain health insurance coverage, and that's important to remember. Now, this also expands family and medical leave, so let's go through that. The Act also allows for an additional 10 weeks of paid expanded family and medical leave for employees who have been employed for 30 or more days prior to the leave request. The pay is 2/3 of the employee's regular rate of pay, where an employee is unable to work due to a bona fide need for care for a child whose school or child care provider is closed or unable for reasons related to COVID-19 to provide these services. Employees taking leave must be paid at 2/3 of the regular rate or 2/3 of the applicable minimum wage, whichever is higher, up to $200 per day, and that is $12,000 in the aggregate for a 12-week period. Please note that's a very different pay requirement than sick leave. In other words, this means that there will be 2 weeks of paid sick leave, followed up by 10 weeks of paid expanded family and medical leave. Small businesses with fewer than 50 employees may qualify for an exemption from the requirement to provide leave due to school closings or childcare unavailability if the leave requirements would jeopardize the viability of the business as a going concern. Now, more requirements are being written about this, so more details will be forthcoming. There is also a requirement for a workplace poster. The Family First Coronavirus Response Act includes 2 new posters, one for federal workers and one for all other employees, and they will fulfill the notice requirement for employers obligated to inform their employees about their rights under this new law. And how you get the website, how you get the poster is at the website, and the link is on the screen. Now, this poster also includes questions and answers about posting requirements and a field assistance bulletin for further information. So that's the news for today on the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. And I encourage you to watch my blogs and podcasts for the latest information on how to react during this crisis. And I especially encourage you to watch my podcast if you're implementing remote work. A lot of employers scramble to implement remote work. That podcast and also a series of my blogs will give you great guidance on how to do that. Until next time, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.